What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and welcome to another episode of World of Warcraft Dungeon Overview. It's been a while since the last episode of this series, and I promise that it'll have been well worth the wait. I spent quite a bit of time fiddling with some new tricks in my editor to make this look as good as possible. Anyways, today we are going to be learning about Zul'Farrak, and I'll be going through with my Draenei Arms warrior you see here. So with that being said, let's dive straight into it. Zul'Farrak was once revered as the shining jewel of Tanaris and the capital of the Sandfury tribe. Throughout history, the Sandfury trolls have had to relinquish more and more of their territory to other forces as a result of the domain spreading too far. Gadgetzan to the east, the Kiraji hives to the south and southeast, and the Dunmal ogres to the south have slowly encroached on the Sandfury's ancient deserts, and with the cataclysm stirring up the world so violently, the once proud trolls have been forced to seclude themselves into their once proud city. Rumors aplenty await those adventurous and foolish enough to enter Zul'Farrak, the most tantalizing of which being the ancient artifacts that are nearly priceless to anyone with a big enough wallet. There is, however, another rumor, one of a beast that lurks within the city's walls, malevolent enough to make even the Sandfury themselves cower before its maw. Though you've been tasked by your clients in Gadgetzan to deal with the troll's recent necromantic tendencies, it's your curiosity that really drives you forward through this sandstone fortress. Zul'Farrak is a level 39 to 54 dungeon located within the northern mountains of Tanaris. The easiest way to reach the entrance in this case is to follow the barrier hills to the west of Gadgetzan, as you see me doing here. You'll soon come across what looks like Sandfury structures, and the entrance you're looking for will be inside the sandstone ruins. It's highly likely that you'll have to fight your way into the dungeon, as there's tons of mobs between Gadgetzan and Zul'Farrak. Scorpions and hyenas dot the dunes on the way there, and trolls begin to appear once you get closer to where you want to be. These mobs shouldn't be too hard to take on, just that they can be relatively dangerous if you begin to pull too much aggro. Theka was a Sandfury warrior long ago who fought in the ancient war against the Kiraji. Though he eventually fell in battle, his sacrifice was not in vain. He is single-handedly renowned as the reason that the old god's minions didn't overrun Zul'Farrak, and he also managed to drag down dozens of Kiraji with him. His love for his home city was so strong that his body now stands vigil over it, surrounded by loads of scarabs. It's fabled that these insects are the fallen Kiraji warriors, cursed to follow besides their enemy for eternity. Theka can cast a disease called Fevered Plague, which can deal a nasty bit of damage to whoever is unlucky enough to be affected. Luckily for you, this ability can be interrupted. You should know what to do at this point. I hope. It's also worth mentioning that Theka is surrounded by a lot of scarabs. Yeah, that lore bit wasn't just for show. These scarabs are plain, but you should still be careful not to AoE. Wouldn't want to create a stampede of little buggers. At 30% health, Theka will become immune to physical and shadow damage for 15 seconds, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to stun or root him for the time being. That way, the few people in the group who actually can do damage are free to wail on him unhindered. Untitled is a Sandfury shaman that has taken more than a liking to the area's basilisk population. He's even been known to cut down his fellow trolls for mistreating his scaled companions. Untitled and his children, as he refers to them, live on the outskirts of the eastern portion of Zul'Farrak, accompanied by only a few other trolls who have taken a similar interest in the basilisks. As previously stated, Untitled is supposed to be a shaman, and as such he shares many similar abilities as normal player shamans. He can cast Healing Wave to heal a nearby ally, and trust me when I say that he'll have plenty throughout the fight, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. What's more is that Untitled can also cast Healing Wave of Untitled in order to heal himself. You can't see it here because I one-shot him if I look at him the wrong way. Oops. Untitled has plenty of summonable buddies to help him out throughout this fight, most notable of which has to be the half-dozen basilisks that accompany him from the start of the fight. These are relatively low on health and should be AoE'd down while working on the boss. There are also a few totems that'll be really annoying to deal with if they're allowed to live up to their full potential. The healing ward is relatively self-explanatory, and should be killed just about as soon as it pops up. The Earth Grab totem is a little less consequential if your group doesn't need to move around a lot during the fight. Unless you've got a tank that wants to go all Sanic on you should be fine ignoring this one. Your benefactors in Gadgetzan wanted you to find the focal point of all necromancy happening around Zul'Farrak recently, and it looks like you found it. Zumra has been taking the corpses of the dead and bending them to his will. As long as he lives, the Sandfury's Fallen will be left in eternal servitude. But it's alright, you'll remedy this situation real soon. Zum'Ra has 3 different interruptible spells: Shadow Bolt, Shadow Bolt Volley, and Healing Wave. You do the math. It wouldn't be a necromancer fight without some undead, right? Well, Zum'Ra has you covered there too. Every so often he'll put up a ward of Zum'Ra that'll summon skeletons every 5 seconds that it lives. He'll also awaken zombies from the nearby graves, and this ability isn't nearly as easy to avoid as the others. Also, a quick word of advice, don't click on the shallow graves. It'll summon zombies regardless of Zum'Ra doing anything. Actually, the zombies will rise even after the boss is defeated in this case. Well, what do you expect when you're stepping all over their face? Another note, Zum'Ra will appear friendly at first, but that'll change once you step close enough to him, so don't worry about the fight bugging out or anything. It's just a weird little bit to do with interrupting his work or something like that. There's nothing entirely special about these two, unfortunately. They're just charged with gathering sacrifices for the beast that slumbers within the city. When it awakens, it'll be hungry, and the Sandfury trolls will do everything in their power to ensure that they're not on the menu. In order to initiate this fight, you'll have to travel up the stairs to the top of the altar near where the bosses appear to be on the map. From there, just take out the Sandfury Executioner and free the prisoners from their cages. Once the prisoners make their way to the top of the stairs, the real fight starts. You'll notice that a ton of Sandfury trash mobs will spawn at the bottom of the stairs, and some will begin to run up a few at a time. It's vitally important that you stay at the top of the stairs with the friendly NPCs for the time being. Wait for a few waves of trash to run up the stairs and die before running down to grab the whole pack. This is because there's a relatively common bug with this fight, where the friendly NPCs will despawn, and won't respawn without resetting the instance. This is a major problem because you need the goblin to open up the doorway to the final boss's room. After a few waves of NPCs helping you out, you should be alright to run down and take out the rest. After a few more waves at the bottom of the stairs, the bosses should spawn with about 8 more trash mobs. The group of friendly NPCs will make their way down the stairs to help you out. There's not really a particular order in which the bosses have to go down. The fight is pretty much a fair 10v10, so just go for whoever you feel like. The NPCs helping out sort of level the playing field a bit. Once the bosses are downed, talk to the goblin and ask him to take out the door. Just be sure that he's not grabbing aggro from any patrols on the way. That can happen sometimes. After that's all said and done, you can talk to the Sergeant Bly NPC to fight the remaining 4 if you'd like. They don't really drop anything, so it's up to you whether or not you want to bother. You can just leave them hanging if you're feeling lazy. Just kidding, death is the only option. Velrotha is one of the rare Sandfury trolls that has traveled around the world of Azeroth, gathering artifacts to help her command the waters found near the heart of Zul'Farrak. They're considered sacred to the Sandfury tribe, and as such, Velrotha is seen as extremely significant for their society. This boss is something of a shaman druid. Her abilities Healing Wave and Water Bolt are both interruptible, and what they actually do is relatively self-explanatory. Her only other ability is called Typhoon, which works pretty much the same as the druid spell by the same name. For those of you who don't rock a shapeshifter, it's a spell that slightly damages and knocks back enemies. The Sandfury aren't exactly sure where this massive hydra hails from, but they don't seem to care. Its raw power is what they're interested in, and it's the creature's insatiable appetite is what they're concerned about for when it finally wakes up. Some popular theories about where this creature comes from include some sort of demigod or even a pet of the old gods. Personally, I don't see any signs that the Sandfury tribe are being affected by the old gods, so it's more likely that the former theory is the case here. My guess is that Gazrilla is some sort of Loa, since the trolls are known to worship various Loas, and we've recently learned from the Warcraft chronicles that the Loa are some sort of demigod. Before the fight starts, you might want to clear out any remaining trash mobs standing around the pool area. I'll explain why in a minute. Once you're ready, go bang on the gong, because what better way to wake up a ravenous beast that an entire troll tribe is terrified of than by pissing it off with loud noises. Gazrilla can cause a random player to be frozen by freeze solid, which will immobilize and damage them for a short time. This shouldn't be too awful to deal with, but it is something that you should be aware of. The reason I told you to clear out the area before is because of an ability called Gazrilla Slam, which can knock back players. It would just really suck if you managed to pull aggro for the entire room after carefully avoiding everything up until that point. Obsessed with restoring the Sandfury tribe to its former glory, Sandskelp has begun bolstering his forces for a war against the whole of Tanaris. Not the goblins, gnomes, ogres, or the pirates will stand in their way. Sandskelp has called upon his old friend and comrade Ruzalu to advise him in this time of dire need. The main thing to keep in mind is that Sandskelp has mostly cleave attacks, so if you're a melee DPS, you should be standing behind the boss at all times. Just like it says in the lore segment, Ruzlu is right beside his chieftain to advise and defend him when the need arises. This is a relatively simple mob to take out, so it shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds to deal with him. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and the new tweaks in the editing. My main goal for this episode was to see if I could pump up the production value of Dungeon Overview to something similar to Paradoxical Ramblings and Unanswered. I don't know if I got that far, but I think it turned out pretty well regardless. Either way, if you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Links for my social media and whatnot are in the description below, and as for the comment question, what do you think of the new format? Constructive feedback is always appreciated, since I'm always trying to make the best videos possible. Anyways, that's all the time I've got for today, so until next time, don't die.